After all the struggling that you couldn't really show you because I'm always in the way assembling it, we actually have the assembly back together. The wire assembly, which we'll use this to point with, is all inside this portion of the housing with the bakelite piece right here, and this little silver ring is the lock ring I was talking about. To tip the lock ring into place, that's why they have this opening here and you have to work with it with a screwdriver. So I use this jeweler's screwdriver to get that lock ring into place. Now if you were to pull on the wires, you see nothing comes out. So everything is assembled. If you had to reverse the assembly to take it out, you have to pop the lock ring or you can't pull any of this. These two wires which I pulled out, they're red wires, and they're actually for the switch that we're going to solder in here in just a second. So that's the switch that turns it on and off. So that's going to be our next step as we're going to work on soldering that. Take the soldering iron here and get a hold of the switch. Now it's important to note which way is on, because when you're going to put your cap on there, see it has on and off. This happens to be on. I've already pre-tested it. Just make sure I did it right. Logically it looks like I did it right, but it's one of those things that using a meter to test is a good idea. So these actually are just like little U-shapes that these will solder into. So I'm going to grab a little bit of solder and we'll put these wires back. Now, because it's a fairly good sized post, it'll take a little longer to heat than one would normally think something would. So we'll put it on here and we'll get this all heated up. And it takes a while to cool too because of the excess amount of metal we heated. Okay, so we've got 1 or 2 on. Set the soldering iron down here for a moment and see if we can get this other one lined up. Okay. Okay, so the switch is back in. Now this little switch then just tips down into the hole like so. The next item, you have to have your little bakelite cover, and that fits right in the slight depression. There are 3 very small black screws. And because the bakelite's old, we're not going to over tighten this. We're just going to tighten it up snug. So we'll get this one started. Get our next one. And get our last one started, then we'll go back and tighten them up. Remember, I said just snug on this because it's old enough that I don't want to crack it. Just snug. Okay, so that's put together. Put our solder away here, and we're going to show how the end goes together next. The end pieces you have to have are your cap, your little handle, a lock washer, and a nut. So we're going to have to put this little guy on here, ultimately. And in order to do this all together, you have to put your handle in, and there's a groove down in there that you're pushing this down in. Then you flip this to the side somewhere, put your lock washer on, put your nut on, tighten it up with a nut driver. So the handle is applied. Now you want to get this all lined up. Now you notice you have two screw posts here. And other than the fact they're there, you have to pretty much visually find them. It's not all that easy to find the spot you want. Take your end screws, start one, get the other one. So now they're both in there. We'll tighten those down. So now you've got everything back where it should be, and everything's moving good. That's that portion of the assembly. Next thing that's necessary is we got to feed all these wires down through this section. The only way you can do that is feed one wire at a time. So we'll take our white wire and we'll pull it back through. Here's our brown wire. And there's no rule as to order for these going through the hole. We just got to get them all through there. Come on, I can see you. Come through there. There we go. Yes. But right now, we're going to look at what else we have to accomplish. This is your mounting stud, and this is a little partial piece that they've made that's curved on one side. That's for your mounting stud to go up in, and we're going to put a nut here. Now I've got to get a star washer. You can see there should be a star washer there, so I'm going to go pick up a star washer and come back and put that in. Okay, we're back with you. I got my little star washer assortment. One of the things that, few things that I think, yeah, you run out to Harbor Freight and get one of these 750, actually 720 piece, internal and external lock washers. Perfect for this because that's the exact part I need here. So here's what we're going to do. You notice the poor little bolt's a little bent, but he's kind of specialized. It's not like a normal carriage bolt, so we're going to be reusing this bolt. We're going to have to slide this bolt up in here, put your rounded portion over the end of the bolt. And the truth is, it is a tight fit with all those wires. And we don't want to tighten this up a bunch right now. All we want to do is put it together. So next is the star washer. Because we want this on here loose so we can assemble it in the car. And then we want to put our nut on there. And this nut's got a lot of threads to it. And all I'm interested in right now is pretty much starting it. There. So that's in. And you see how the assembly goes right there. So hopefully Trish has got a good shot of that. And you'll see there just gets to be not a lot of room. And we're actually going to have to tighten it up with all those wires in there, which is fairly difficult. So that is all done. This happens to be the end cap. I'm obviously not going to put the end cap on right now because I'm going to have to tighten that when I get in the car. The end cap was also painted. This, believe it or not, is the original little gasket. Still works. Still going to use that. The other parts sitting up here are the opposite end parts. So once this is back in the steering column and all the way down to the bottom, I have to put this over everything, followed by soldering all these points on the right spots here, which you should know that it won't probably pick up here, but on this plug are the various wire colors. The only one that's not labeled is the center one, which in our case is going to be yellow, but the rest of them are labeled as to their wire colors, just like they were in the shop manual. So you have to look real carefully on these. And I'm probably going to wear a pretty good magnifier when I'm doing that, so I can actually see that I get the wires in the right place. Because all 9 wires must obviously be soldered in the correct locations. And we'll clean up our ends just here a little bit. Now I had to unsolder them from this to disassemble it. This particular piece happens to be a little insulator that goes over the entire assembly. So it goes in the little can with the tabs folding over, and this is the actual piece of wire loom that was in the car originally. So that goes in when we put it back in the car. In general and in detail, that shows you a 1937 version of an electric hand selector switch and how it goes together or comes apart. All you have to do is reverse what I did if you want to take it apart. But I will not tell you that this is easy and simple to do in a few minutes. I've actually had to work on it several hours in order to get everything apart, get it all cleaned up, and I'll get it back together. But I figured it was nice that somebody would at least show this, because the shop manual isn't completely useful in making it simple to understand. Alright, here we are at the Terraplane. We've taken the selector switch, which we assembled and showed you earlier. We've placed it in the vehicle. A couple of things. It's not yet completely tied down, as you can see by the paint not being continuous here. When we tie it in place, that won't show. However, we found that this bolt assembly that we showed you in an earlier video segment cannot be put in, like Hudson says, before you get to the car. You need to put it in afterwards, because that T side of the bolt has to slide in a slot up here. It doesn't work with all those wires in there, so we found we had to slide the bolt up in and assemble the nut washer and the little piece for the nut to rest on inside the car. So that's what's been done here. Now this was definitely a two-person job. Trish was inside the car feeding the wires and holding on to the selector switch, and I was under the hood. And we're going to show you under the hood how I came up with a way to get these wires in here, because Hudson's method, once again, I don't see how you could do what they say in the shop manual. What you have going down this shaft is kind of a flattened area with a curved top, shaft being obviously rounded, and it's actually a tube within a tube, but it's only a sort of half curved area, so all 8 of those wires, pardon me, 9 wires, have to be exactly kept flat. So I'm going to show you the opposite end, how I came up with doing this. At the base of the steering column, you'll see it's split and there's an opening. This is where your wires come out. And you can see we've got all the wires down here. Now, how the heck we got those wires down flat, like Hudson said, is to do something is not in the book. So over here on this end, you'll see I made a brass piece right here. This particular brass piece has a hole. It's kind of arrow-shaped, and I soldered all the ends of the wires in the order they're supposed to be so that they're flat onto the brass piece. Now, because I punched a hole in it, I was able to run a fish tape up through the top and put that through the hole, fold the fish tape over, and I pulled from this side while Trish fed from the other side, and we got the entire wire supply down here. Hudson says to use clips to lay them out flat. I see no way you could successfully have done that, so this was the solution to getting the wires down here. Next, I'll have to unsolder this, and solder them all up to the actual plug that's supposed to go back in here, which mates to the other plug down below, which you really can't see because of all the wires, but there's a plug this will plug into.